Hi, everybody, and welcome to Final Play Sports. I'm your host, Pete Lubar. Today, we're going to talk about a roundup of basketball happenings in the Mountain West over the last week and then cover some football topics. So, got a lot to get through. We'll do it very quickly, but we'll start with basketball. And in basketball, actually relatively light. Kids were getting through finals and other things over the last couple of weeks, so for the most part, the conference was pretty quiet. Not a lot of big wins, a couple losses that you wouldn't expect. And we'll start with Utah State. So Utah State had been undefeated, and I think they were at one point 11-0, and then they beat Florida to go to 12, South Florida to go to 12-0. A nice win to 88-67, and then promptly lost at home to San Diego, University of Cal San Diego, by 2. And University of Cal San Diego is an okay team, but the best team they've played all season so far is San Diego State, who they lost to. So not a little perplexing, and this is exactly what I was talking about a couple weeks ago on my last vlog around Utah State, is we don't really know who they are because they really haven't played anyone. And they had played Iowa, and then they were going to play St. Mary's on Saturday, and sure enough, they come back and beat St. Mary's on Saturday, which was a really nice win for them. St. Mary's is 10-3, lost to themselves to Utah State, Boise, and Arizona State, and so St. Mary's is a competitive team usually every year, and so that was a good win for the conference. And so it's just a little perplexing that they would lose to University of Cal San Diego. Colorado State had a really interesting week. They lost to VCU at home. Not a terrible loss, but you'd like to win those. And then upset Nevada by 2, 66-64 in Reno. And that is a big upset and a good start for them in the Mountain West Conference, as they beat Steve Alford's team by 2 and take a 1-0 record into their game against New Mexico next week. Boise had a 2-point win over St. Mary's in overtime. Degenhart put in 17, and then they played Air Force this past weekend and killed them for their first conference win. So no trouble at all for Boise to get past Air Force in Boise. Wyoming lost this week to BYU. Would have liked to have potentially gotten that win for the conference. UNLV lost to Dayton by 1 on Tuesday. Probably would have liked to have won that one. And then New Mexico played VCU on Wednesday and won by 7 and controlled the game the whole way. Donovan Dent had 40 points. He was unstoppable. I think he had 5 assists, 4 rebounds, and 3 turnovers. A really good game for Donovan Dent. And San Diego State yesterday beat Cal by 21. So that's a good win, getting a win over a athletic, what is it, ACC team, I guess that is. So good win for them over Cal. And that kind of wrapped up our basketball schedule. Conference stuff gets full swing now. I think most of the teams are done with their preseason. And, so we'll see nothing but conference games for the next couple of months. And things will shake out. We'll see how things end up. On a football side, things went pretty well for the Mountain West last week. First of all, UNLV won their bowl game, the Art of Sport LA game, which I have no idea what that is. I may have to go look that up, but they won 24-13. They covered the spread. They beat Cal. So once again, a good win for UNLV. They did that without their coach, who has taken the job at Purdue. But they did announce a new coach. We'll get to that in a minute. Later this week, Penn State will be the team that plays Boise in the Fiesta Bowl next week on Tuesday. It should be an interesting game. Boise will have had 3 weeks off to get prepared, so that's a positive for them. It's in Phoenix, which isn't too far from Boise, so probably have a bit of a home field advantage. We'll see what happens on that. And then this one's super important for the conference, because if Boise State wins, then they go to the next round of the playoff. And the way the playoff payoffs work, if you made it to the first round like Penn State did, you got $4 million. If you made it to the second round, like Penn State and Boise do, you get another $4 million. So Boise brought in $8 million for the conference last week, or will have by next week, and that's a good thing. But if they win again, then there's $6 more million for the conference. So you're talking about 8 plus potentially 6 more. That means each team in the conference is going to get $1 million out of Boise getting to the Fiesta Bowl. And that's why it's so important that the Mountain West has an opportunity to participate and play as a gang of 5 to get one of the spots, even if they're not one of the best 12 teams in the nation. So super excited to see what happens with that. Definitely will be tuned in. I would guess Penn State will be slight favorite, maybe 4.5. I haven't seen the odds on that yet, but I think they'll be somewhere in that area. And then last week, a bunch of coaching moves. So number one, Jason Eck was hired at New Mexico. He comes to New Mexico from Idaho, where he's spent the last 3 years. He's made Idaho and rebuilt them into a sort of perennial top 20 FCS team, and also has taken them to the playoffs the last 3 years. He's got an infectious personality, a really great guy, coached at other schools, 25 years of coaching, was a winner, won at South Dakota State, so lots of good programs, but he's done a great job at Idaho, and now he's the man at New Mexico. Dan Mullen went to UNLV, so former Boise and Florida coach, and right away makes an impact. First of all, he's getting a ton of money. They're giving him, I think, $3.2 million, which is significantly more than most of the Mountain Wests are paying for their football coach. But right out of the bat, he lands Virginia quarterback Anthony Colandrea, 4,000-yard passer, and so he's rebuilding right away and hit the ground running. And then Matt Entz was named as Fresno's new head coach. He's a two-time national champ with North Dakota State. A couple of years ago, he left for USC as their defensive coordinator, and so he's now Fresno State coach. So I know we'll see how good all of these guys are, but it looks to me like the Mountain West did really well in terms of coaching upgrades. The transfer portal is a big problem, a big thing, and a big opportunity. New Mexico was the hardest hit team in the nation with 35 in the transfer portal. But this weekend they had 15 recruits in from Idaho, and they've got about 5 Lobos who have already announced they're staying, a lot of the offensive linemen, which is great. The whole transfer portal is, quite frankly, stupid. Why a kid has to declare because their narrow window says they have to before the season is over makes no sense to me. Just like no sense. So the kids are forced to actually jump into the portal and then decide whether a coaching change is good for them, whether other kids are going to be transferring in is good for them, bad for them, all that stuff. And they really need to just delay the whole thing about 3 weeks. And in my opinion, they need to put some kind of cap on the amount of money that kids can make, a collective bargaining agreement or something like that where you can manage it. Because right now, there's a kid going to University of Michigan who's recruited away from Georgia. And as I understand it, he was offered a $10 million NIL deal. And what an 18-year-old is going to do with $10 million is actually beyond my comprehension. It's stupid. I mentioned a couple weeks ago in another post that the going rate for a good quarterback now is $2 million. And you look at the kid that left New Mexico, Devin Dampier, and he's going to Utah with his offensive coordinator. But they've got another kid coming in who's also really good. And they've got Cam Rising, who's really good. So I don't know who plays in that situation. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Somehow they need to cap it by team, cap the amount of money a team can spend, or cap it by player or position or something that makes a little bit of sense. But right now the transfer portal is stupid. Lastly, Mountain West was sued this last week by CSU, Boise State, and Utah State. Sued for restriction of competition, apparently, something along those lines. Mostly they want to try and get out of the agreement to leave the conference, the money that would be owed. So it's, I think, $15 million a team if they leave. The argument being that it hurts the Mountain West competitively if those teams leave. Therefore, they need the money in compensation. The schools are saying that that's anti-competitive and don't want to have that. So we'll see what happens. Fresno State and San Diego State did not join in on that. And that may be because they're all part of the same Cal system that San Jose State's in, and so they don't want to sue each other, and same board of directors. So I can see where they're not joining right now. They may. We'll see what happens. But the thing is that these teams that are leaving the Mountain West have actually hurt the Mountain West and did so purposely, and were not coerced or forced to leave, and they needed to, by bylaw, tell the Mountain West that they were leaving, and by bylaw, tell the Pac-12 that they were coming. And so theoretically, all that stuff happened. So in fact, they have left the Mountain West, and then now we're in an interim period where they're still in the Mountain West until 2026. So a lot going on around that, but the argument that they shouldn't have to pay because it's anti-competitive makes absolutely no sense when they just signed an agreement with the Pac-12 for $30 million a year if they leave. So if any of those teams leave now, the Pac-12, it's $30 million instead of 10 or 15 that they're paying the Mountain West. So they want to have the protection on one side, but they don't want to pay on the other. And I don't think that's going to work. I think that'll get struck down by the courts, and I think the Mountain West will get compensated for that. And I think we'll know most of that by about March timeframe. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any questions, send me an email. My contact information is here. If you like hearing about Lobo sports and Mountain West sports and CSU sports and all the other things going on around the conference, tune in and subscribe to my YouTube page, and we'll keep doing it for you. Thanks so much, and have a fantastic day.